Hey everyone, I'm Steve from GamersNexus.net. We're joined again by Chris Roberts from Cloud Imperium Games. And we just spoke about the FPS module that should already be on the channel. Now we're talking about multi-crew. And the previous roadmap I saw was sort of FPS module and multi-crew were a little bit after each other. Multi-crew is later. What's that looking like in terms of feature set? How complete are things?
Well, we're actively, multi-crew is something we're working on right now. You're here, all the studios around the world are working on multi-crew. We're going to show sort of the next generation of it off at Gamescom, so that's in about 3 weeks' time or so. There's a bunch of stuff that's really exciting. So I think we've talked before that we've been moving the engine over to 64-bit not like less about 64-bit compile, more about 64-bit positional space. So pretty much every 3D engine works in 32-bit, which is great for a normal FPS because you usually don't have maps that are bigger than, say, 8 kilometers by 8 kilometers. But for us, we've got star systems that are millions of kilometers across, and the precision on 32 bits just isn't enough. Right. So we spent about 8 months now, it's done, moving the engine over to 64-bit world space coordinates. So the last kind of part of it was moving the rendering over so it became camera relative, because the GPUs themselves, most of them don't work in 64-bit, they work in 32-bit, but since you generally won't be able to see millions of kilometers away, the visible range is inside 32 bits, but the actual overall system space is much bigger, and then we'll have some special handling for big celestial objects.
That's something we just talked about in our Fury X review as well, the bit size of the different interfaces and architectures, so it's definitely a hot topic right now.
No. So and it took a lot of work because like I said, most engines are sort of built with 32 and 64-bit, and back when I think they were written, because CryEngine was first evolved from Far Cry, then the Crysis, and so on. They didn't even think about ever having 64-bit. There's tens of thousands of files, so it took a lot. Luckily we've had some of the original engineers and architects of the engine join us, and so they helped a lot with it. So at Gamescom we are going to be showing a large world map. Just actually a small portion of it, but if you were to fly from the starting location to the ending location, it would take you 2.5 hours at top sort of current dogfight speeds. I think it's several 100,000 kilometers of the distance. We'll of course do a bit of a quantum jump between them, but it's all on the same map and the same scale. And what's really nice is we've got that, and the second piece of technology that the engine group has built, which is called the zone system. So one of the big challenges, and this is one of the things we definitely needed for multi-crew, is the zone system is what enables us to handle sort of sparse/dense data. So in most FPS games, like I said, it's in 8 by 8 kilometers. The density of the levels very consistent. You're wandering around buildings or vegetation, and there's a lot of objects and interest in small amounts of areas. But in space, you can have huge areas of nothing in, and then you can have areas of high density, like a space station or an asteroid field, or say a big ship that has people inside it and stuff like that. So what we needed was a sort of method of handling this data and culling it and updating it and organizing it in a way that was optimal. Because the typical way engines use is like octrees, which is not very good for sort of the sparse data that we occasionally have. So we built this thing called the zone system. So essentially you break things into zones, and you can get into zones, and the zones can have more and more fidelity into them. So like you can have a big multi-crew ship itself is considered, everything that's attached to it is considered in its zone, and then inside there's an interior that's its own zone. Now that ship can exist inside space, and
so you're streaming data in and out.
Yeah, so it can exist inside, say, one zone could be around a moon, right? And that moon zone can be inside the system zone. And so it's ways of sort of containerizing data, or things that you would render or things that you would update in a way that the engine can efficiently decide, do I need to render it, do I need to see it? And that's tied into a whole bunch of other things like visibility culling. So it's the only way we can get our really big capital ships and some of our more heavy multi-crew ships to work properly. So like if you're in the hangar, one of the reasons why the hangars can run slow if you have a lot of big ships like Constellations or freelancers is each one of those the old models are like 2.5 million polys each, and a good 1.5 million is really on the interior, right? And
right.
So the way we're doing originally was very brute force. It just gets thrown all in the renderer and then it just decides what's going to cull out. Whereas our newer system has that all plugged into the zones, and so it's intelligently culling out geometry, objects you don't need to update if you can't see them
right.
or if you're not near their zone. And so that's really what enables the large, the promise of Star Citizen, these huge, massive areas, but you have this incredibly high fidelity, right? You've got like this, next gen, AAA, first person fidelity. You can reach out and touch and feel everything, use a toilet, whatever. That it's all there in a detail you normally don't get, which you normally only get in sort of a contained small FPS kind of area. But now we have that in, that can, you can get in and you can walk. I mean, we're going to show it in Gamescom. You're going to start in a space station. You're in a room. You'll get out. You'll open up the space station. It's huge. You'll see this sort of gas giant outside. You'll go out to the landing pad. You'll get into a cutlass with your friends, and they'll all get into the cutlass, which will all be its own zone, running the local grid, this is where we have the physics partitioned for each individual ship, so it can fly around and you can be moving around the ship, irrelevant of where the ship's going.
Right.
And take.
Are there any loading screens in between all of?
No loading screens. That's the other thing. Is that so the zone system helps us determine what we stream. So when you know where the zone system is and you know what's contained in the zone system, as you approach it, in the background we're streaming. So that's the other tech we've been doing, is background streaming of the graphics and background creation and streaming of the entities. Some of that's a little bit will be in 1.15 because that's one of the reasons how we got more. One of the issues with more players in Arena Commander was that all the ships are really heavy, and so what happens is when you blow a ship up and you recreate it, just building that ship takes a whole bunch of time on the main thread, and it creates a stall both on the client and on the server, and so that's where you get this lag when you play a match and you see ships skip. And so we've been working to sort of be streaming stuff in the background, so even though it's loading lots of data, it's not stalling the client or the server, so that will reduce lag. And there's still a lot more work to be done for it, but it's all built to be sort of just dynamically streaming background, and we need to because the size of our ships and the detail, I mean, they're huge. We're talking hundreds of megabytes in terms of textures and geometry and all the rest of stuff. So at Gamescom, we're sort of demoing the sort of real system that will sort of enable, that promise of the full Star Citizen universe and persistent universe, where you can, walk around in this incredible fidelity, get into your ship, take it off, fly somewhere else, fly large distances, get out of your ship, EVA into another ship, start that ship up, and then fly around and get into combat with that and land it somewhere else.
Cool.
So that's sort of what we're all focusing on right here, which is sort of our demo of to give you a taste of Arena Commander 2.0, which is the multi-crew ships. Our goal is to hopefully get Arena Commander, the multi-crew stuff out for the 6 weeks after FPS drops. We have some integration to do because FPS is on a separate code branch right now to the multi-crew stuff. So once FPS is out, we've got to drop that back in to the code branch, integrate it, get it working again, get rid of any conflicts or bugs or problems, and then finish out sort of multi-crew. But our real goal with the multi-crew stuff is, we're going to have this huge, like one of the play maps you'll have will be one of the huge maps, and we're just going to sort of set it up in a free flight mode and just have places for people to play around and see what happens, because it's really going to be sort of a playground for what the persistent universe is going to be like. And from there, that's where we're going to start to basically release parts of aspects of what will build the persistent universe up, because the original intention of Arena Commander and also what we're doing with Star Marine was really, they're all sort of testing grounds for the gameplay and the features that are part of the bigger system, which Tony and his team in Austin, supported by other areas like Behavior and the folks in Germany, is building sort of this bigger persistent universe experience. So I'm really pretty excited by where we're at with multi-crew. I think hopefully people will be impressed by what they see when we show them at Gamescom. I mean, it's a real system that has extensibility, and we're going to show you transitioning, you getting into one ship, taking off, flying, getting EVAing across into another ship, powering it off and flying. It just all those things that you've seen in the machinima videos that people have done, that you go, okay, if I could do that in a game, it'll be awesome. So I'm super excited because a lot of the technology we've been spending a lot of time working on, that you really can't show because it's deep down in the bowels of the engine, is now coming to fruition.
Right.
And we're getting it in, and we're actually getting it in to show what it will allow you to do. And of course, yes, there's going to be bugs and issues and edge cases, but the potential of that, you just haven't had the ability to ever do this in a game before, and I think that'll be a new experience. So people get to play it. Like the way I sort of view and what happens on our stuff is that, and this happened last year, is that we've got an incredible group of supporters and backers that are allowing us to make this super ambitious game that I think no publisher would ever back. And in general, they're pretty patient. But at some point, when they don't feel like they've got any new content, they get a bit rowdy. And so last year, we hadn't had Arena Commander out, and we thought we were going to have it out sort of closer to sort of March, April, again like the Star Marine. And it was getting pretty rowdy on the forums. And then we dropped V0.8 of Arena Commander, and then the rest of the year, it sort of went pretty well. I mean, I'm not saying everything was perfect, but we dropped out V08, 0.9, 1.0, and people got new ships and played stuff, and they could see there was visible changes and alterations in the gameplay. Maybe not everything that everyone wants the way they wanted it, but they definitely could see that we were working on it and changing things and responding to what people were saying. And so that kind of went, and then on the Arena Commander side, we stopped updating it. I think I can't remember when our last patch was out, maybe April or May. At the time, I think it was shortly after PAX East. What happened was we thought FPS would be earlier, and we didn't want to overload the QA guys. And at the time, it would look like the FPS patch potentially could drop 5 weeks after the most recent the Arena Commander patch. And we're like, normally we're like a 2 to 3 week cadence, but let's push it so we don't make it too much work for everyone. And then of course FPS took longer and longer, and we never went back and updated Arena Commander and fixed some of the balance things or added new ships, and so no one's seen any progress on Arena Commander for like 3 months. And so at this point, I think people start getting rowdy, and they're like, well, I want to be doing something, and there's only so much you can dogfight with a certain set of ships without changes. And so that's one of the reasons why we're putting 1.15 out there, because it will have the Merlin, which is a smaller fighter, and it will have the scythe that will be flyable, so the few people that have a scythe can fly around it, and you also have the ability to get that with some wreck, which will be fun, and get people playing again. And then hopefully Star Marine will be pretty soon after that, and then multi-crew, and then we're going to have some persistent universe.
So multi-crew is still after Star Marine. So
it's after Star Marine. It's definitely after Star Marine. No, I mean it's the multi-crew for us is our whole process is Star Marine will be so we have 1.15. Then we'll probably have 1.16, which is sort of an incremental improvement on 1.15, which will be about 2 weeks after 1.16. And that plan of that is to actually go live with that at Gamescom, and then have Star Marine, which is 1.20, because it's all on the same code base. Round about Gamescom on the PTU, or slightly after Gamescom, just depending on where we end with it. And then after you're on the PTU, usually it's a few weeks on the PTU, and then it should go live. And I hope that would be the case. I don't know, because on the PTU we may expose some things that we haven't done before, because that's one of the cases where, like, our internal QA, we've got maybe 30 people around the company in QA, which is not small, but when you're trying to do a multiplayer game, it's really not much. So when we first go to the PDU and when we go live, that's when we get real testing. So that will go, and then after the FPS drops, multi-crew would come after that. So tentatively, I would say, if you're looking at it, I would think that multi-crew potentially is a CitizenCon release. But again,
don't hold them to it.
Generally, where it's holding out. But it's going to be very cool. I mean, it's going to be, and I'm super excited, because we're also working on the different roles for the co-pilot and the pilot. So it's not just the gunner, and there'll be a lot more stuff going around, like the engineer and all the rest. So it will be people playing co-op, operating the same ship together. And I actually think it's one of the things that will make a big difference, because right now everyone sort of judges sort of the space combat and flight experience in the microcosm of single-seater ships flying around.
Right.
And single-seater ships, it's one thing, but we've got these big multi-crew ships, and then we'll have these huge capital ships. And so we have to have control schemes and systems that handle everything. And so it's pretty hard to sort of like really judge where everything sits until you get them all in. You know, like, is this ship really overpowered or not overpowered, or how does this ship sit in the overall scheme of things? Because there's a lot more gameplay that we're planning on than just single-seater dogfight combat. So I'm really excited to get multi-crew in there because it sort of opens up the palette. There'll be things for people to do that won't just be straight about combat, and I'll also be able to sort of see some interesting stuff where, like, we'll probably put some things in, like a mission where you've got to escort the ship to get from point A to point B as a test, which will be sort of a prototype of a persistent universe type mission. And then you'll have people cooperatively, some people flying the big ship, some people an escort, and then other people trying to take it out, and that'll be this whole sort of cooperative gameplay that I think is one of the true promises.
Really cool. Yeah. So there's multi-crew, brings us up to speed on that. Previous video was the FPS, and check out, of course, Robert Space Industries for the game, and then gamersnexus.net for updates.
Thank you, Steve.
We'll see you all next time. Yeah, thanks.
All right, see you guys. Thank you very much.